It's that time of year where we are all thinking about business growth. We're planning for the new year. We're setting goals. We are looking for what will give us that competitive edge and really just searching for a lot of different external solutions. We want the newest tactic or we want the newest strategy. And we're also looking for advice from any and every place imaginable. It becomes almost like a scavenger hunt of sorts, just looking for this one magic solution. But I want us to use this episode to challenge this perspective. And I want to pose this question. Let's remove money from the equation. What do you have already at your disposal that, if leveraged correctly, can help you grow bigger and better in the new year? All right, let's talk about it. There's a misconception that we don't exist, that somehow our ability to excel at the highest level of our industry is limited, that overcoming barriers as a woman of color would be insurmountable. But what would happen if we decided to venture out on our own despite everything we're up against? I'll tell you. Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, a healthcare consultant, consulting coach, high performance fanatic, wife, and proud girl mom. I help transform female professionals into thriving solo consultants. And just like you, I'm wearing all the hats and doing all the things. So this podcast is to empower the busy female professionals to move past fear to start and grow a successful consulting business, despite the obstacles you may encounter. We'll dive deep into consulting practice, business strategy, mindset, and more. So grab your cup of coffee or tea if that's your thing, and let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I am your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, and I am sitting here amazed that we are now about to go into another year. I swear time flies faster than you could ever imagine. And this is usually the season where we are all thinking about what we're going to do differently. Everyone's mapping out goals. They're setting expectations. They're dreaming big. And I love it. I love this season. And it's something that I really do encourage people to do, not just at the beginning of the year, but also think about it throughout the year. I just think this energy is just so magical. So don't let this be the only time that you do it. But I wanted to have this conversation because there are three things that I really do view as being very, very powerful when it comes to trying to grow your business. And to be honest with you, there is nothing that you need to search for externally in order to leverage these most effectively. And I want to talk to you about what those three things actually are and how you can leverage each and every one of them to your advantage. I think this will be a conversation to make you think a little bit about what you already have at your disposal and to give you a little bit more power, hopefully, in terms of how you approach the new year and really have you think differently about what you can do to grow and advance in the future. This list is not ranked in any particular order, but this was just the first thing that came to mind, and it is what I really base a lot of my business structure on. And I think when it comes to consulting, this is one powerful thing that you can leverage and use. One of the first things that you can tap into is your feminine energy. Now, let me explain. Consulting in general, just as an industry, is a very hyper masculine space. And I think some of you may ask, what do I mean by that? And really, when you think about it, consulting is filled with this whole energy of hustle, right? Hustle and drive. And there's a lot of competitiveness. There is an edge to the industry that we really are being more aggressive, oftentimes trying to win the business, trying to make the sale or get the contract. And there is this extreme push that we often feel when it comes to really having a presence in the industry and really surviving overall. And that goes against oftentimes what we think about in terms of our feminine energy that allows us to have a little bit more ease and more balance and more intuition. And let me just stress that feminine and masculine energy have nothing to do with gender. However, I do believe that oftentimes, especially as women in consulting, we have the ability to tap into that a lot easier. I won't go down that whole path. That's a conversation for another day, but just know that due to our society, due to other, factors that are present in our environment, we have an easier time often kind of tapping into that and feeling those things more naturally. And so I think that that's something that we rarely use to our advantage. I remember when I first started working as a pharmacist long before I even thought about consulting. I worked at a large county hospital and we stayed in the red all the time, maybe mainly because we didn't have a really good payer mix. And so what that means is that we didn't have a lot of people that had private insurance. So we were always in a situation where we were looking for funding, trying to, increase our financial picture, improve our financial picture. And we would get a lot of consultants that would come to help us figure out what could be done to somehow make this hospital profitable. Now, we're not couldn't even talk about how that was never going to happen because it's just simply not structured to be that way. But that didn't stop them from hiring help and seeking that help. And I can tell you as an employee, we would hate to see consultants coming. They were aggressive. They were know-it-alls. They had no clue how things really worked, but arrogantly shared their opinion all the time. And they ultimately led to a slew of layoffs and slash budgets. It just was not a good feeling when you saw them walk in the door. But that was my first brush with consulting. That's what I knew of consulting at that point in time. And that was not good. Now I understand that that was a very unbalanced view, right? I know that that portrayal of the industry is not accurate, but it was what most people at that time in my environment felt when they saw a consultant walk through the door. And very recently, I shared some of this conversation on Instagram, and we talked about how many other people felt the same way. I got a lot of responses about this whole perception of consulting and working with consultants that wasn't necessarily positive. And I think a lot of that is due to that unbalanced, highly competitive, aggressive, and just extremely logical energy that is often present. And it lacks empathy. It lacks intuition. It lacks greater kindness. It lacks the sensitivity that really just happen to be characteristics of the feminine energy. And when we're able to inject that balance into the picture, into the work that you do, your work actually becomes even more powerful because you become the person, the advisor, the consultant that walks in the door that people want to see. They want to see you coming. They want to know that you are able to share a positive light, positive insight, and make a better impact on their lives and on the business as a whole. And that is something I personally have found to be extremely beneficial in my practice. That is a tenet of how I practice. And I can tell you that it helps you to win business over and over and over again. It helps people to connect with you better. It helps people to trust you. You win that know, like, and trust game faster. You're able to position yourself to be the person that people want to go to and work with time and time again. And a lot of that comes from the fact that you are tapping into these things that are often lacking in most cases when they experience a consultant, when they experience working with consulting services. And so what I want you to think about is how you can really tap into that within yourself and leverage that to your advantage. I mean, your clients will appreciate this added value that you're able to offer, not to mention the fact that if they have any employees that are working for them, they are going to be so thankful that you're different. And it would be like me back in the day. Instead of feeling on guard when a consultant arrived, they will feel relieved and they will feel open. And that will actually make it easier for you to do your job because instead of them holding back on information, on details, they are going to share that with you and be more open and be more transparent. That will allow you to go deeper and deeper into the work that you have to do to provide a very positive and beneficial solution. So your approach becomes desirable because it is more comfortable, it is more pleasing, it is more pleasurable And that is what gives you a competitive edge. So one of the first things that I want you to leverage and consider leveraging is your feminine energy.
Are you a female solo consultant or expert in your field who desires to build and grow a highly profitable consulting practice? Or are you finding it difficult to build your business and expand your presence in your industry to generate the revenue you desire? If so, my signature program, Expand to Excel, was created with you in mind. It's a 12-week, one-on-one curriculum-based coaching program developed to help you create and implement a personal strategy to build and grow a highly successful and profitable business as a solo consultant, no matter the industry. So visit www.excellaconsulting.com to learn more and to schedule your next step call.
So number 2 is leveraging your authentic experience. I think that many of us believe that consulting requires a certain level of quote unquote professionalism in order for us to be taken seriously. This can really leave many of us really battling to show that we can be just as focused and determined as our male counterparts. And for many women in consulting, especially women of color, Black women in particular, we can feel like we have to hide part of ourselves that may be somehow, misunderstood in order to fit in. And that leaves us feeling uncomfortable. And it leaves us with this inability to allow our authentic experience to be known. And one of the best examples I can think of when it comes to this whole concept of hiding your authentic experience is something called code switching. And most of you are familiar with that term, but if you aren't familiar with this term, code switching is really what many Black people have become accustomed to using in a professional environment to successfully navigate many of the interactions, especially in an interracial setting. It is something that many of us do naturally, mainly because it's more of a protection mechanism. It has been something we've used for survival, oftentimes in practice, and definitely when it comes to business and career. And most of us, including myself, are very guilty for using this to hide our authentic experience. I was actually reading an article in the Harvard Business Review very recently on this topic, and it talked about how research actually showed that code switching often occurs in spaces where negative stereotypes of Black people run counter to what is considered to be quote unquote appropriate behavior. And that this shows up when norms for a specific environment are going to be challenged. And we often do this. We often do this code switching when we want to connect with people that we don't feel will understand who we are authentically, who we are based upon our authentic experience. And it is our attempt to try and create some level of similarity in hopes that it would allow us to be seen as equally competitive, as equally qualified, and as a desirable advisor, especially in the consulting setting. But here's the thing. When we do this, when we are trying to fit in so that we can overcome these stereotypes, so we can kind of gain this level playing field, when we do this, we also silence the perspective that is often needed at the table. We're not speaking out loud enough, strong enough, bold enough. We are not leveraging what we have learned through our authentic experience and the insight that we can actually share that's going to help our clients add depth and expand their insight into problems that they need to solve. And on top of that, we are not able to show up boldly. We're not able to show up in our full boldness and confidence because we're holding back. We're holding something back, trying to make sure that what we are naturally, authentically, based on the experiences that we have had in our lives, that those things don't cause people to become afraid of us and fearful, and for us to be seen as being different. And the thing is, what's so crazy about all of this is that intentionally, we are attempting to blend in, right? We're attempting to fit in, but unintentionally, we are actually hindering our business growth. What is actually needed to effectively compete in a very saturated market, in a very competitive space, is to stand out. We need to have our voice heard, but instead what we're doing is muffling our voice from fear of this misunderstanding that could occur. I'm so guilty of that. I know many of us are guilty of that. And so what we're doing is the complete opposite of what we need. And it's important for us to be mindful of this, to think about times where we are trying to work to fit an image that keeps us from really showing up as our full selves, using the knowledge that we have and causing ourselves to shrink and to hide in these circumstances. We have to fight that urge to fall back into the shadows. We have to fight that urge to try and change who we are. I know it's not easy. This is easier said than done, but I do believe that when we are able to have insight and share our perspective, our unique perspective that others do not know, that others do not often hear nor understand, this is highly, highly valuable. And you need to use that to your advantage because that is going to allow you to create a space where you become known for this unique perspective, this perspective that many clients are looking for to add that level of understanding and depth and value so that they can solve today's problems, the problems that they're facing today, which largely involve some aspect of diversity, inclusion, and just greater awareness overall. And that's whether or not you're working in the business to consumer or the business to business space. This applies across the board. We have to stop feeling the urge to hide and really utilize our authentic experience as a consultant in this industry, in whatever skin that you're in whatever capacity that you hold to provide that insight. And I do feel like this is a perfect segue into number 3. And that is that leveraging your beliefs and values is just going to add another level to the growth that you can possibly achieve in the new year. Did you know that according to a 2019 older Deloitte study, purpose-driven companies witness higher market share gains and grow 3 times faster on average than their competitors? That means that these companies that have a purpose, that are driven by their purpose, actually grow faster and gain a greater market share than those companies that don't. Why? Because today's consumers are smart. They are smart. They're looking for more. These businesses are creating deeper connections, making more substantial impact, and really just generating greater results by showing why they're there, showing their purpose. And people are actually looking to do business with what aligns with them most. That's why this aspect of really using your authentic experience and then sharing your beliefs and values is so important. I'm not just saying this, I'm pulling this directly from data. Data shows this to be true. And so that means that your values and your beliefs are a powerful asset. You have to share this. You have to share this, and you want to do this in any and every way that you can so that you can, one, attract clients that are well aligned for you, that you're going to enjoy working with because you are on the same wavelength. But then 2, you want to create a deeper connection to your brand that will actually cut through the noise and make it easier for you to gain the business and attract the clients that you want to work with. You want to be able to compete against these larger agencies and firms, especially if you are working as a solo consultant. In order for you to do that, you're not going to have the big budgets and the massive team that others may have. You have to leverage something else in order to help you grow. And you can definitely do that. You can achieve all of your goals and move to whatever that next point is in your journey if you're able to leverage those things you already have at your disposal. Bottom line, you can best leverage the power of your purpose when you're not afraid to show it, when you're not afraid to share who you really are and then why your business exists. And I know that a lot of what we're talking about seems a little bit, I don't know, you maybe even say flighty or different. I know that when I'm talking about sharing your purpose, sharing a little bit about your beliefs, sharing your values, sharing your authentic experience, using your feminine power, when I'm talking about these things, it sounds a little strange because we're used to people telling us that we need the latest Instagram strategy, the latest LinkedIn strategies. And those are important. Those are important things to use for your marketing efforts. But to truly grow your business, to truly build something that's powerful and that's something that is going to achieve longevity in the industry and that is going to bring you true success beyond just your reliance on people that you know currently or your current referral network, those are also strong assets, but that's not the only way that you can generate business. You're going to have to tap into some of these other things so that you can grow beyond what you may have previously seen as your limited world. In order for you to really achieve everything that you potentially have the ability to do, you're going to have to think differently. And so, although these things are things that you may see as not being in line with what most people are talking about right now, I want you to really consider how you can utilize these assets, these valuable assets to your benefit. It doesn't cost you one dime to implement any of this. It costs you no money whatsoever to use these powerful tools to your advantage. And that's why I wanted to share this. That's why I wanted to have this conversation. Because although it seems very simple, it's not always easy. These are not easy things to do, because if they were easy things to do, they wouldn't be things that stood out and allowed people to differentiate themselves even more in the industry. And so as you're moving into 2022, I want you to have all the tools in your toolbox, and not just the ones that you can pay for or the things that you can use in terms of another system or another social media outlet. But I want you to think about those things that you have internally that have been uniquely given to you to maximally use so that you can achieve all of your goals and dreams. All right. So I hope this helps. I hope this helps you think about things differently as you're moving into the new year, that you're able to really consider how you can leverage some of these things to your advantage and really stand out even more in this competitive space. Okay, now that is all for this episode, and I will talk to you again very soon. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to leave your review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share it with a friend. We're on a mission to increase the success and longevity of women in consulting, and you can help us do that. Also, I'd love to hear from you, so let's connect at Dr. Angelina Davis on Instagram or LinkedIn. And don't forget to visit excelatconsulting.com for more information to support your consulting journey. Until next time, take care.